we'll get started. Good morning. My name is Tracey Warren, and I'm the Managing Director of eWomen Network Snohomish County. And as the Managing Director of eWomen Network, of a chapter of eWomen Network, I feel like my role is to be the matchmaker for my members. And so I started this blab actually Tuesday, and my goal is to introduce my members to other people. So that's what I'm doing here. Today, I'm here with Christa Smith. She is the Savvy Brand Builder. So Christa, let's start by just tell us a little bit more about you and kind of how you got here in your business. No, you're good.
Is my computer freezing? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, my computer froze. You said tell a little bit about me. Is that what you asked? Oh, okay. Well, I'm Christa Smith, and I own Savvy Brand Builder. I started this company about a year ago because I was helping small business owners with their online presence and their online advertising. And when you work in the corporate world, sometimes you have to go the extra mile for your clients to make the sale. So I was coming in and finding that business owners were so busy working in their business and getting their businesses open that they really didn't have time to come up with a strategy or a plan. And it amazed me how many businesses were opening and just shooting in the dark. So I would come in because I was selling websites and advertising and pretty much help them create a brand, because I wanted to use them for referrals and I wanted to be able to show people their websites and their advertising to sell to other people. And I couldn't have it be all slipshod, So I would come in and do that. And then after a while, my company started outsourcing things and making some internal changes. And I didn't feel like they were supporting my clients very well. And my clients finally said, Christa, we want to fire your company. We don't want to fire you. And I said, what does that mean? What does that look like? And they said, well, that means you need to start your own company and you need to do and start charging us for what you've already been doing. And I'm like, And so I have 20 years of sales and marketing experience. I used to be a sales trainer for a Fortune 100 company. So I love to take ambiguous things and break them down into easy to digest chunks for people and easy to do's, and then take them by the hand. Sometimes you're dragging them, sometimes you're leading them, and get them to realize their own greatness. So right now, I usually work with really overwhelmed business owners.
So what do you say, or what would you say is the biggest mistake that businesses make when it comes to branding?
They think the whole adage, if I build it, they will come, actually works, and it doesn't. And I think the details. Business owners a lot of times are so worried about selling their widget or getting a client that they forget it's all in the details, because the details are what other people are paying attention to. Like if you are a shoe salesman and you show up and your shoes are all scuffed and old and maybe even untied, they're wondering, what can they possibly know about shoes? And so I kind of find everything from like a realtor who has a realtor's license. They just figure because they have the license, they're going to be able to sell homes. And a lot of times, you know what I mean? It doesn't mean they know anything about it. It doesn't mean they know how to relate to a client. Just like a business owner who opens a retail location or like a hair salon, they think because I know how to cut hair, people are going to sit in my chair. There's a huge trust factor there that people are not
What's that whole
thinking
the
about,
book
that they have to build their brand around why
the
people
E-Myth,
trust them.
Right? I don't know if you've read that, but the whole myth is, well, if I love making pies, I should make a business out of making pies. And what you don't realize is that you have dishes to wash and customers to take care of and merchandising to handle. And so we think, oh, I love this, I should start a business. But most of us, myself included, I didn't have any idea how to grow a business. And then when we don't know, it's what we don't know that we don't know. And then that's where we get overwhelmed, right? So Go ahead. Nope, you're good.
Exactly. And go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say that's what I find a lot of people, they have this passion, which is why they started their business or went into a certain industry. And just like you said, they don't know that they don't know all these things. And a lot of times when I sit down with people, I'll ask them questions because I have so many clients when I was working in the corporate world, so many clients I would go in and see. And when you're in sales, you walk in and they're sitting there in front of their computer like this, staring at their accounting program that's not working, or staring at some invoicing or whatever the problem is, or their social media. Your appointment to sell them a website and advertising is not going to happen until you help them with what they're currently is on their brain. Otherwise, I learned a long time ago, it's a waste of my time to walk in unless I have their attention. So I have lived in a small town for about 17 years, and I've always felt it very important that I brand myself. I've never been, people would probably don't remember the different companies I've been at or the different companies I've had. They just remember me as that short little blonde gal, the little firecracker. That's what they call me in town. And so, because one of my clients told me that, like, oh yeah, they're like, oh, I know who you're talking about. And I'm like, is that a good thing or a bad thing? She's like, no, that's a good thing. But so I would come in and I would be like, you know, and I'd be, before I knew it, I'd be sitting behind their computers and helping them get through whatever the issue was so that then we could have our appointment. And that's a trust and a loyalty that you can't pay for. When you care more than about your bottom line, when you care about the client. And that's kind of always been my brand. So when I meet with clients, the first thing I do is our first session, I sit there with them and I really dig into who they are and what are their core values. People don't think about how that translates to their business. They're thinking, I cut hair. What do my core values have to do with anything? Or I sell real estate. What do my core values have to do with this? And I'm thinking, because whether or not you get it, anybody who comes in contact with you is going to feel if your values are not in line with theirs. So I try to find out what those are and then try to help people fully develop their brand and voice of their brand, so that when I tell people, when people see you online, like say they hire a social media manager, like such as yourself, I say, you need to make sure you're sitting with that social media manager and you're giving them enough face time and enough talk time that they get your voice if they're going to be managing something for you. Because so many people are like outsourcing things nowadays to people they've never met. And they're like, oh, I just need a Facebook page, or I just needed this. And I'm like, no, you need more than that. Right. You need someone who gets you if you don't have time to do the stuff yourself, which most people don't. And I think because if I interact with you on your Facebook page and I think you're awesome and amazing, so I finally am ready to sell my house and I call you and then I meet you, I know within 2 minutes if you are the person behind that Facebook page or not.
Absolutely.
I said, and if you're not, all of a sudden, I don't trust you.
Your own business, what do you outsource?
What do I outsource? I have a virtual assistant, a couple that I use. I outsource things like this. We'll record it, and then I will outsource the transcription of it. Yeah. And then I will pull pieces of that out and use it for blogs. No,
seriously. I talk to people all the time about how I don't go back and watch my videos. Are you crazy? Yeah.
I will, but because I'm trying to hear, but then I finally said, I can't do this because, well, half the time I live in a house full of men and they'll come in, what are you doing? So I outsource that. And then I haven't had to pay for it yet, but I have some supportive people in my tribe that will help me when I'm like doing speaking engagements, getting set up, things like that. What else do I outsource? And I outsource filing. I outsource sometimes sorting my email. Things, just simple things right now. Oh, and signage and things like that. I have a great graphic designer I work with. I'm one of those people who knows a lot about several things, like just enough to be dangerous. And I used to be of the mindset that if I know how to do this, so I need to do it. But the more my business grows, I'm learning no, I'm gonna let the expert do it because my zone of genius is in
well,
talking
and
to
the
my
reason I
clients
even asked you
and
what you
pulling out who
outsource
they
is
are.
that I feel like that's an important topic to talk about with business owners. I feel like so often it's I can't afford it, and what I realize is I'll sit down to do something, and I'll start to do it and think, you know what? Nope, I should not be doing this. But it's taken me getting to a certain point to recognize that. And but that whole idea that we can outsource and then it frees up our time. So somebody, Debbie Whitlock, asked on a page recently, when you outsource, are you paying for their time or for their expertise? And I'm like, I'm paying for their expertise because I'm buying back my time. So, whoop, whoop.
I'm going to give you props for that. Can I give you props for that? Well, that's exactly it. Because like I have clients who I go in and I usually do strategy sessions with clients once a month. And sometimes they'll be like, so we only meet once a month. And I'm like, we meet once a month for 90 minutes or 2 hours, depending upon whether it's a team or an individual. And I say, well, yeah, because do you want me on the phone with you all the time and emailing you all the time and bugging you, keeping you from doing the work you're supposed to be doing? Or would you rather me meet with you once a month? I give you a to-do list. I check in with you once, maybe twice, basically saying,
right,
where are you at? If they don't reply, they don't reply. It's okay. It's more of a reminder for them to get on it. And I say, and then I said, and what you're paying me for is I'm the think tank back here. I'm now worrying about all this stuff. I'm making sure everything's coming out consistently. I said, it's like a little advertising agency in here, but you're my sole person that I'm thinking about. Like I was at a client's the other day and I took a picture of some signage they had and they're looking at me all funny. And I said, well, I'll sit and I will stare at this. I will sit in my thinking chair. I have a thinking chair. And I go, it's funny. My family will walk in. They're like, what are you doing? They'll go, oh, you're thinking. And they back out of the room because I'm mulling over like branding things and I'm mulling over taglines and I'm mulling over what's wrong with this. It's not consistent with everything else they have out there. Why? What is it about it that's bugging me? What message is this sending versus what's coming out of their mouth? And I said, so they don't have to worry about that. Another thing I find myself saying a lot to clients is, do you pay me to help you make more money or do you pay me to be your friend? I said, because you don't have to pay me to be your friend. And I can sit there and say, yay, good job, you're awesome. And then go home and go, oh my gosh, you should see what they're doing. I said, or you can pay me for my expertise and say, this isn't working. It amazes me how many clients want to say, and I've been guilty of it myself. I think I've done it with you when we first talked like a long time ago, like 9 months ago, about what I do. And when the client finds themselves explaining, oh, no, you have to understand this is this way because no potential customer is ever going to have that conversation with you about why you do things the way you do them or why the message is unclear. There's too many choices. They're just going to choose the next one Google popped up or the next referral they were given. So I always tell my clients, I go, I can sit here all day long and listen to you explain all this craziness and confusion, or you can look at me as, oh, because especially in real estate, everybody's your potential client. And I try to get people to really narrow that down. But I said, but I am a potential client. If I don't get it,
I was having coffee the other day at a Starbucks and we were at one of those long tables. So my friend and I were sitting across from each other and, oh, you're good. My friend and I were sitting across from each other and at the end of the table, there was a couple and a real estate agent who they had clearly never met. And it was, it's like when you're trying to keep working, but you're secretly listening to what this real estate agent is saying. Oh. And it was
always. I always have one ear on.
Oh, I felt so bad. To me, it was a train wreck.
Was it a train wreck?
But because it was like, we're experts and here's why, and we handle a gajillion transactions and I thought, gosh, just chill for a second, maybe ask them a question or two. And I know that for me, I'm glad that things are changing for you. Because for me, I want to hire an expert, period. When people start saying, I do this and this and this and this, I'm like, and I'm moving on to the next person. I would well, that's actually good, right? That I would rather hire, if somebody's an expert at social media, great, I want to hire them. If they're an expert at marketing, separate from social media, I want to hire them. If they're really good at websites, it's the people who want to be good at everything. Like, you can't be good at everything, right? That's so just enough to be dangerous.
Just enough to be dangerous,
so,
like I said.
Let me ask you another question. So why did you join eWomen Network? Other than me.
I joined eWomen. Other than you. It's funny, is a long time ago in the corporate world and in my personal life, I was one of those women who I didn't really have a lot of female friends. Like in school, I had 2 best friends. And other than that, I was the person who knew everybody and could go to any party and the door would be open and I'd be welcomed in. But I didn't get the whole group thing. I stayed as far away from it as possible. And any really good friends I did have tended to be men, because I figured if a man was being an ass, you could just say, look, you're being an ass, and tell him. Right. And then you guys hash it out, and then you're done with it. And then you can drink a beer together or go play, ping pong or whatever together, pool. Whereas women, I didn't get the finessing of that relationship, the relationship first, and I found it very catty, because I've always been very out there with what I'm thinking, no filter. It took me a long time to figure out that how to do that in love instead of just out there with it, and coming from a place of caring instead of just stating every observation I made, and I make a lot. So I think in eWomen, coming to that and being in a room full of all sorts of women, and you know what it was? I think when I went to an SBI with you, which I know is like a side thing you do with eWomen, the small business introduction, but it was this safe room, which was a crazy concept to me because I'd never met any of these women, yet I could come in this room as a businesswoman and say, I'm having this challenge, and put it out there. And all those women put aside their own motives, their own whatever, and focused on how to support me, how to help me, what they had done, what they had found. And it was a really good feeling. Like I wasn't quite sure if I trusted it at first, because I've always had to be, I'm a survivor. I've had an interesting growing up, and always in survival mode. And so trusting women was very hard for me, probably because of the relationship I had with my mom. So it was just, it made me feel a feeling I'd never felt before. So yeah, so it's funny, as I look back now, having the healthy female relationships I have now, and I think they don't want anything, there's no strings attached. I used to be, like, when I was younger, always worried, like, you ever have that syndrome, like you're the last person out of the room because you're worried people are going to talk about you? That's when I was younger. And I think that came from the female relationship I had with my mother, probably. So it's so awesome to not have that anymore. And to just be like, yeah, I'm out, and not worry. Yeah.
You do keep locking up, but it's okay. I'm just going to talk over you when you lock up. How about that?
And that's all I can be.
But I did want to say hello to Monica Hubinet, who just joined us.
Go ahead.
Amazing travel agent. And you ever hear travel? Anyway, I love what you just said for a number of reasons, because sometimes I don't think about the power of that trust, that whole idea that I'm in a room where, and maybe I'm in a room where I know I'm not going to get pounced on. And maybe that's it. Maybe not, right? Like, I'm going to tell you what I need, and I'm not going to have 10 people coming up trying to sell me their crap.
Right. Well, the other thing the other thing about that, Tracey, is people assume things about people. Like, it's funny is I don't see myself the way most people see me. And it's funny is when people will ask me like, oh, you must have been of this or you must have done that. That's not how I grew up. It's not how I see myself in the mirror or anything else. And so I had some people talk to me about eWomen, like they were thinking about joining. And do you get a lot of business out of eWomen? And I said, and I was, the couple times I've been asked that question, I said, not really. And they're like, well, then why are you in eWomen? And I said, maybe that's because I don't feel like I have to say yes. I'm there for the relationships. I'm there because I go, and I guess that and eWomen to me is more of a network. I'm not there to buy your product or to do this, but just like you introduced me to Michael the other day, and that was a great conversation I had with him, and I actually need to call him today because I have a client who needed his services. But it's the introductions, and for me, a lot of it is about, like you said, it's the safe place, it's the trusting relationships. It's like there's another gal in eWomen that I was inviting to another networking group I'm in, and she felt comfortable enough to tell me that she had experienced that, and it wasn't for her, and I didn't take it personally. Does that make sense? I was just like, totally cool. And I still totally respect her as a professional and think she's great. And I felt it was awesome that she could tell me that. Because sometimes certain groups get very, oh, well, if you're not doing business with me, then I'm not talking to you. And eWomen is so not that way. It's the whole lift as you climb. Because I've always said the party at the top is going to be really lonely if I'm the only one there.
The party is going to be lonely at the top if I am the only one there. Love it. Yes. Do you like my hat? Wait.
I always think of what's that book? Go Dog. Is it Go Dog Go? With all the dogs on the top of the tree and their little party hats. That's what I think of when I think of eWomen. Exactly, and that's what I think of when I think of eWomen.
My gosh!
I always think of that picture of a big party, and I'm like, "That's
awesome.
eWomen."
Okay,
They say,
so let's go back to talking about.
Always comes to mind.
Okay, I think that's one Dr. Seuss book we actually have. So
I've got the book if you need to borrow it.
In your business, let's go back to, so you work with real estate agents and overwhelmed business owners. So when you say overwhelmed business owners, I think inside I secretly think, aren't all business owners overwhelmed, or is that not the case when you're out and about?
I think it is the case, but when I say overwhelmed business owners, I want the ones who are owning it. They get it. They're ready to make a change, because there's the ones who are faking it, and I can't work with them. It's like I have a client right now who I was just thinking about this today, and people need to understand that when they are the business owner, they are the leader. And you can't hire me and have me come in and just tell me you've got it under control, but your team needs me. It doesn't work that way. Leadership is from the top down. And so I've decided, it was funny as I was talking to one of my colleagues today that I mastermind, we kind of co-storm with a lot. And I said, I've decided I have to really interview potential clients because I have to make sure I don't get more of these types of clients, because it's a waste of their money. And I don't like wasting people's money, because I feel like I work hard for my money. And so I don't want to waste anybody's money. So I want to make sure they're in the right mind frame to make a change. And to be the leader to say, hey, we started this and we realized we just kind of threw something on the wall and went with it.
Obviously,
but now we're going to kind of tidy up the wall.
If they say
and make it bigger and better.
It's my team's problem. Have you come across other red flags for you personally where you know, okay, this is not the client for me? Yeah.
Oh yes, I've told people that I don't think we'd be a good fit before. I've had clients I've had to fire before.
Yeah.
It's hard, but I just usually go from the standpoint of, I think I'm wasting your money. And then they usually don't argue. And they'll say, well, what do you mean? I'll say, I think that you want somebody to come in with a magical solution, and I'm all about hard work. I'm all about coming in and finding the one or two things that are really going to make a difference. But that means we roll up our sleeves and get it done. And I just think you want a quick fix. And I'll tell those people, honestly, for you, I think you would like to go pay people overseas to do everything for you.
Yeah, I think sometimes it takes,
that's great. People do that in business.
Taking the wrong client to know. I had one of those recently where I was like, okay, yeah, I was excited. And then there were all sorts of red flags. And by then I was, the contract is signed and we're going. And, but I think so here's a question for you, for those people who might be listening to this blab, who are like, well, I need the money. I have to take the clients. How do you respond to that? Because obviously, that's not you don't just have to take the clients because you need the money.
Mm-hmm. My fiance is a plumber, and he owns Edmunds Plumbing. And people may have actually heard of Edmunds Plumbing now and may have seen the trucks around because he's got several trucks running now. When I met him 3.5 years ago, they were doing, we were just starting to come out of the recession for people in his industry and in real estate and that whole industry. And so they were doing anything. I was proud of him because he was doing anything he could to pay the bills, right? But then as I started to watch his business, I would give him ideas like, I think you need to do this. And I think you need to, they were even doing landscaping jobs, things, whatever they could do to make money. And because it was just him when I met him, because he had been bigger and then he got smaller and, and it was interesting because I can use him as an example with my clients. I say, it's funny, it's now 3.5 years later. He has, in the last year, has started to implement things that I told him 3.5 years ago. That probably, now he's got 4 trucks out there and he probably needs 2 more and he's looking for people. And I said, he could have gone so much faster, but his comfort zone wasn't there. His headspace wasn't there. And he didn't have the internal supports. You know what I mean? He didn't. And I kept saying, the first thing you need to do is hire an office manager. Well, remember we were talking about outsourcing. And he's like, well, that's overhead. And I'm like, but it's overhead that's worth it. Because, how much time that would free up. It's funny is now he has an office manager and it just frees up so much of his time. We were in the car just yesterday and he was doing something. And I said, don't you have to do X, Y, Z? And he's like, oh no, she's doing that for me. I put her on that. And I looked at him and I smiled and I said, how nice is it that you can say that?
Well, and
he said,
and in
I know,
that
right?
industry,
like,
there's
3.5 years
specific,
ago,
like home
I go,
services,
yeah, you would have been up
plumbing,
to midnight
electrical, that if you don't get the person on the phone, they're going to the next person on Google. And so having someone answer his phones, how amazing is that? My phone doesn't ring that much. Right. And I've thought about, gosh, how could I have someone handling phones for me so that I'm responding to,
He still answers his phone. He's a control freak like that. He still answers his phone because he wants to know his clients. So if you call Edmunds Plumbing, you'll still get talk to Frederick, the owner. But it is something he's planning on transitioning. But there's so many other things that he had her take over. And it's funny is he had rotator cuff surgery recently, and he can't be out there turning wrenches right now. So it's funny as I told him, I said, God is growing you as a businessman now. That's why you had the surgery right now. And it's funny as again in this conversation we had last night, he said, it's really cool getting to focus on the business side. And I said, isn't it? Because you can see where you were and where you are. And that's something to be proud of. And you can see where you're going. Where so many times people start a business and they're so busy doing the work, they don't even have time to feel good about what they're doing.
Okay, so I have a question about something
they don't realize
about control
where
freaks.
They started, where they are, and where they're going.
I would imagine that you come across a lot of, there's probably a couple things. One, they're a control freak, self-proclaimed usually, but they know they need you. So how do you gently encourage them? I mean, do you gently encourage them? Because I know you are kind of straight from the hip. Mm-hmm. Or do you just say, seriously, do you want to make money or do you want control? I mean, how do you handle that?
That's what I say. That's what I say. Do you want to make money? Or I said, you can. I said, there's two people in this world. There's those who are right and there's those who are successful. Which do you want to be? I said, because like I had a potential client the other day. We had a great meeting. And I saw what she was paying somebody, like an insane amount of money in real estate. These people get charged insane amounts of money for simple coaching programs and things, which just baffle my mind. This is stuff I've always done like for free for my clients, and they're paying thousands of dollars for this stuff. And so I'm listening and I'm like, you pay what for a half an hour phone call each week? And what you got out of that last call was this piece of paper that you're tracking your phone calls on? What? You know? And she said, but I needed it broken down like that for me. So to her, it was worth it. But in my brain, I'm like, I like to save my clients money. I really do. I like to come in and save them money. So I'm like, okay. So I tell her what we can do. And then I send her the proposal, and then she comes back with, and she was very honest, and she knows herself really well, was, I'm a control freak. I'm still in contract with this other training company. My big concern in working with you is that you will have stuff for me to do that I know I won't do. And I said, and so I replied back to her, I said, I think we've missed a step because my clients don't not do what I ask them to do. It's not an option.
Right.
It's because when you come in and I'm doing brand strategy, A has to be in place before B can happen, before C can happen. And I said, if you're not ready to do the things I ask you to do, then you're right. We can't work together. But I think that maybe we missed something in communication. So she and I are going to meet again or talk on the phone again. But it does happen. And it was funny is she's
so
lovely
when they're getting in their own way,
amazing, but I think she's getting in her own way. And I see it a lot.
Out to something else to help them get at me? Or do you just say, when you're ready and keep in touch? Like how do you kind of close the loop on that?
Sometimes there are books or people that I follow online, like on social media. I'll say, you really should check out this person, or maybe you should check out this book, or maybe you should listen to this audiobook. And I'm like, and then tell me what you think. And then I make sure to follow up in a couple of weeks or whatever and say, hey, because remember one time I had a potential client, she turned into a client, but after meeting with her, she was like, yeah, okay, thanks. It was a great meeting, but talked with my husband, basically my business manager,
Good luck.
And he thinks I can just read a book and do this. And I said, okay. So I said, okay. So it was funny, as 2-3 weeks later, maybe even a month later, which most people would think it's been a month, I can't follow up. That's not me. I'm more, it's been 2 months, it's been 3 months, it's been 6 months. I have to follow up, because if 6 months have gone by and they haven't done anything, they know they need to work with me. So I sent her and I said, hey, just wondering what book you chose and how it's going, because enough time's gone by that you probably read it and implemented. And she's like, I bought it. And I said, well, awesome. How's that helping the bottom line? How many? And then I asked the hard questions. How many new clients do you have since we met last? And And then she's like, within a week, she was a client. And she's reviewed me now on Facebook and on my website and just said, amazing things. And it was really good, but it takes the time. I've learned that when people meet with me, there are the occasional people that know immediately that they need me. But my closing time from the time somebody meets me, the time they do business with me, if they're going to become a client, is about 3 months.
I have the same.
Which is a pretty long closing time. But people work with me for 6 months at a time. So that's a commitment. And so I'm always reminding myself when I have a full sheet of clients, well, I need to still be getting out there and meeting more people, though, because that sales funnel. I guess they call it sales
you
funnel,
mentioned
I
follow-up, and it sounds like you're using
you always
a
have to be making
system.
new
What
contacts and
are you
filling that.
using as your follow-up system?
Well, I have a system. It's called 17 Hats that I love because I can invoice from it. It's a customer relationship management tool. I can send proposals out that then will automatically, like if they approve the proposal, then automatically sends them a contract. They can sign that and then it automatically sends them an invoice. It pulls my banking information in there. It'll remind me when I need. But the one thing about it is they don't have a good mobile version yet. But I'm one of those people. I'm still kind of old school. I hang business cards up. It's funny is I really believe in what we focus on kind of manifests itself in our life. So I will take like along my window frame here and I will tape up business cards of people that I want to work with, that I've talked to or had initial conversations with. And it's funny. I've done this for all of my sales career. And it was funny is how many of them will become clients. And I think it's partly, again, like I said, when I'm just like staring at my clients' marketing materials or whatever, thinking on it. It's just like when I'll stare at their business cards. And then if I'm making calls or something, I'll look up and I'll be like, I really need to touch base with them again. So it's just like my desk. I got this desk that has a glass panel on it. And I can even slide business cards right under here. And so I usually have like my top 5. Like, these are my top 5 clients that I want to work with because I know I can help them. And because especially, just like you with social media, if you can take somebody from 0 to hero, that looks good for you, right? So those are the clients that we really want to work with because it's exciting and fun to get them to go from they thought they were doing good to, oh my gosh, how did I ever live without you? And so I will usually have those right down here on my desk. And I think about them all the time. And a lot of times I will shoot them out. And this is funny. There's so many people who are so afraid of giving away free information. I will send them tips and ideas all the time. I'll say, hey, you were on my mind. And I was thinking, have you thought about doing this? Hey, I looked at your Facebook. Did you know this is kind of out of whack? Hey, did you know it's been? And just clients knowing, and they're not even clients yet, but people knowing that you care, that you noticed, that you paid attention.
One of my friends, I messaged her.
It means a lot to them because it gives them an idea of
what that graphic you just posted, there was a typo in it. And what was funny is she wrote back and said, I've been using that graphic for years and no one has ever said anything. And that's a good, I love the idea of the visual because I think that, I mean, it's just like you see it, you're thinking of them because they're always in front of you. Do your clients typically, have they been in business a certain amount of time, or is it kind of a wide range of how long they've been in business? Like, are they coming to you because they're stuck? Or tell me.
I find that like my overwhelmed business owners tend to be brand new. It's usually they're brand new from the ground up. So that's when I work with business owners, it's usually people who are opening new businesses, and that usually comes from referrals. People will say, don't even pull the trigger until you call Christa. And I love it when people say, oh, I'll call you in a few months after I get things rolling. And I said, oh, okay, so you have a lot of money. And they always go, what? And I go, well, because I'm guessing when you say things rolling, you're thinking website, business cards, signage, this and that. And they go, oh, yeah, let me get all that in place. I said, okay, but just so you know, we're going to redo it when you work with me. And they're always like, what? And I'm like, trust me, we're going to redo it most likely, because most likely you're going to have no consistency whatsoever. And it might not be who you really are. It's going to be what some graphic designer said you needed or whatever. So that's the type of business owner I work with, usually are new businesses. Realtors, I find that they're so overwhelmed when they start. Most of the realtors who are coming to me, I've been working a lot with Keller Williams lately, because their CEO and I just really clicked, and she gets how I fit into their whole.
Nice.
She gets how I fit into their whole scheme and their whole training, and she calls me she says, you filled the gap. I'm like, what's that mean? She's like, well, she goes, they pay all this money for all these expensive marketing materials, and then they have their clients, And they're so busy working with their clients that once these things are created, they don't know how to marry the two together. Like, they use it once. She goes, and you can show them how to use it over and over and over, and how to build that brand over time. And just for some reason, a lot of realtors kind of have bought into, they have to keep investing in all this stuff over here and using it once. Whereas you and I know we repurpose, we recycle, you know, like I said, just like this, I'll break it down into a transcription, which will then turn into a blog, which will then turn into probably a week-long series of Facebook Live videos. So, so the realtors, they're all over the board, but usually brand new. They're so focused on trying to get clients, they're not ready. They don't worry about their brand yet. I find I work with a lot of real estate teams who maybe players have changed over time and they need a rebrand. And also this industry right now, inventory is so low.
And so really that stand out is, I think, key.
The same old
because, oh, you're still talking. So you're frozen. So that's why I started talking over you. Nope. Okay, you're good. Anyway, the coaching program you mentioned before, not by name, so we didn't mention them by name, but the one that most real estate agents subscribe to, my challenge with that is that if you're doing that and every other real estate is doing that, how are you differentiating? Like this whole, well, you're going to do pop buys and you're going to send.
That's what I say to them a lot of times.
So the whole idea, I was talking to someone yesterday about real estate. I don't know how we started talking about real estate, because she's not an agent and I'm not, obviously. But the whole idea is when it comes, I know dozens of real estate agents, but I also look to them for very specific things. So if I know that a friend of mine wants to buy a condo, I have a very specific real estate agent in my mental Rolodex that I can go, okay, I can call Anna because she's the gal. I have a friend who lives on the cliff, on the bluff in Edmonds. So she has $1 million plus home. When it's time for her to sell, I know exactly who I want to refer her to because this gal. Oh, no, totally different. And
it's probably not the one that you'd refer to for the condo, right?
Most recently, I did actually refer a friend of mine to a real estate agent.
They want to do everything.
And the reason I chose to refer her to this specific agent is because this agent had property listings in that specific neighborhood. Like, that's kind of a totally random thing, but I was like, oh, you live in Maple Leaf. My friend Karen just sold a property in Maple Leaf. I'm going to refer you to Karen. But I think real estate agents, but I think everyone does this where they're afraid to lock it down because if they lock it down, they're fearful that they're going to miss out. And go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, like, when I was doing websites, like, think of dentists. If you go to their websites, every dental office out there has the same stinking site. I remember walking into my kid's orthodontist, and I said something to him, and he explained to me the system that a lot of them buy into. And I said, and it's funny because me being me, I'm like, oh my gosh, is that why you all look the same? And he's like, what? And I said, what? There's always the guy, and then there's all the female assistants standing around him. So it's like this man and his harem. I said, and it's all the same. I said, well, if you like being all the same, just like everybody else, then I am not the one for you to work with. Again, now, if you want to be creative, I got some ideas. And it was funny is he was very intrigued by that because nobody had ever dare speak to the orthodontist that way. You know, because everyone's like, well, he makes a lot of money.
And I think that a lot of industries fall into that trap. Think what you could do. Like, you actually had some branding. Think about wellness professionals, how often their website has somebody with their hands in the air for a sunrise, or they have rocks stacked on top of each other, or somebody in a yoga pose where it's like, okay, okay, it's another one of those, and they're just not standing out.
Right. No, people, that's why I tell people, especially when I interview them or in our first session, I'll say, are you ready to brand yourself and not your company? And it's like, I have a client right now. So I also have these kind of one-off clients, and I love these types of clients. Like he's owned his own company. He just sold it. And he's changing his career, but he has a non-compete signed. So he hired me to come in because he read a blog I wrote, and he's like, oh my gosh, we have to talk. And I'm like, okay. And he said, I read this blog and you said something about branding what exactly are you branding? And he said, I realized I don't even know who I am anymore. For the last 10 years, I've been this company. And he's like, and I've got a non-compete. And so all these clientele and everything that I spent all my time building, I can't even work with. And so it's funny is we were working together for 3 months because he gave me 90 days basically to help him design his new company, what he's going to do. And we've got one more meeting to go, and it's coming along really well. And you know what he said to me, which I took as a huge compliment. He said, if nothing else, what I get out of these meetings with you is that you make me think. And I said, what do you mean? He said, we don't. And I said, I said, that's funny. When I was doing my guinea pig sessions with and I actually used men for the most part, because women are about relationship and men were going to give me the immediate feedback I needed. So I met with like a millennial business person. Then I met with a man in his 50s that I highly respect, who's had his own companies and grown them and sold them. And every single one of them, because I was going to call myself a coach, said, you're not a coach. And I'm like, why am I not a coach? They said, you're a consultant. And I said, why? And they said, because you have the experience to back it up. That if you tell somebody you need to do X, Y, and Z, that you've got the data and you've got the examples to show them why they need to do these things. So this gentleman who's starting his company, it's so funny. And I got this from my friend who is in his 50s as well. And he said, you're a perfect person for the president, the VP, the CEO to talk to, because we can't let anybody know we don't know. And so that's why I say I work with business owners and real estate professionals, because these people a lot of times are so trying to be professional and I've got it together and this is my business. And, they don't have anybody kind of like the SBIs where they can let their hair down and say, oh my gosh, I need help with this. So hiring me, I can come in as a consultant to them and really help them lay it out. Just like this gentleman, I was able to take his non-compete, tear it apart, and show him, because it's funny, is when he sold his company, the company he sold it to retained him. And he's the first person they've ever done that. And I said, you are your brand. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, they don't have a business without you. So let's figure out what it is about you that they need. And that's what we're going to brand. And that's what you're going to do. And he was so fun. It hadn't even occurred to him. I think he thought it was because of his stellar personality, which he does have a great personality. But I'm like, no. They don't keep high ticket employees for personality. You are your company. I'm like, so, and I sent him out to talk to some of his clients and stuff just on a personal side and have lunch and coffee and figure out what is it he's the go-to person for other than what his business did. Because I said, can you have these meetings with him? And he was like, well, yeah, because he, like me, every client has become a friend. Whether or not he's currently working with them or not, that relationship is there. Because I said, you're a people connector and you're a relationship builder. I can already tell that. And it's funny, as I had him take a personality test, which he was totally against doing. I hate these tests and blah, blah, blah. But I love to pull it out because I say, like when we're talking and he's not understanding something or he's not, I can tell he's not quite in full agreement with an idea I have. And I will pull it out and I go, this right here, this trait of yours is why you're having a hard time with this. And it's funny is all of a sudden he'll be like, like he gets it. Because I think there's certain traits that everybody has a certain idea of what's weak and what's not weak. And he has this trait of harmony. which I think as a male, a dominant male, I think you see that as a weak trait. But I'm like, no, because that trait is actually what makes you these relationships that you have. I said, because he and his old business partner, they did, good cop, bad cop. So it's kind of interesting in showing him and in designing his new business. It's been a lot of fun. It's something a little different than what I normally do, but it energizes me. I love talking to people who are always
I find it fascinating. This came up on our blab the other day, my blab with Audrey. Oh, sorry about that.
Maybe that's why I like those SBIs as well. I never feel like
this came up in our conversation with Audrey the other day about coach versus consultant, and and it's just interesting because what she brought up was the whole idea that football coaches don't ask for professional coaches of sporting teams don't ask for your opinion or your thoughts.
The professional coach.
They just tell you to go do something. And so there's this resistance. And I think part of that resistance to being a coach is if you Google Seattle coaches, there are over 2,000 coaches in the Seattle area. Well,
when I heard you and Audrey talk about that, Tracey, I used to help recruit for the UW Huskies, University of Washington Huskies football team. And can you hear me? Sorry. So I used to help recruit athletes. So when I was thinking of calling myself a coach, that was my paradigm.
Right.
These are the coaches. If they tell you to go do 100 down and backs, you do 100 down and backs. I don't care if it's 90 degrees and you have your football pads on. So that's the mentality and the caliber. And this is back when they were like national champions. So that's the caliber of athletes and coaches I was coming from. However, so many people have entered the coaching arena where they have no credentials, they have no learned skills. It's just like an innate, like they can relate to people. And they have hung up a plaque that says I'm a coach.
Sure.
When really, I don't think they're necessarily a coach. They're more of a personal development specialist. Yeah. But they're all falling under this coach. What it's done is it's watered down. You know how you say they watered down the gene pool? So this one has watered down the vertical. And so that's where a consultant gets taken probably more seriously than, say, a coach. But when Audrey said that, I thought, yes, it totally like the light bulb moment for me. Because I thought that's why I didn't get it when these men were and it was men that were saying, do not call yourself a coach, because men typically don't respect people who call themselves coaches nowadays. And I said, why? They said, because everyone stinking calls themselves a coach. And they said, when really what they are is a cheerleader. They said, I don't need a cheerleader.
Right.
I need someone who's going to
I had one friend I was talking to about this whole idea of coach, and she said, I don't need another coach. So okay, that's good feedback. And I think that differentiation piece, right? Like, how many times have you met somebody, I know it's been hundreds for me, where I say, oh, what do you do? And they say, I'm a life and business coach. I'm a life coach. I'm a leadership coach. I'm like, wow, yawn. Like, tell me something more interesting. So it is 9:28. And so I want to make sure we wrap up. Over in the chat box, I put in your website address and your Facebook page. And what do you have going on that people could get involved with right now? Like, I know you're doing the blogging challenge, but that's already going. But do you have anything, workshops coming up, or what do you have going on?
Well, the blogging challenge is going on. This is the first week of it. So the videos and the information is out there for people about how to blog your brand. And so anybody can partake in watching that information. And actually, I do have a couple of spots that I can plug people in if they're still interested, because we had a couple of people who had various life issues, so they had to drop out. But like I said that. So yeah, I mean, if you're moving and cross country, sometimes it's hard to blog at the same time, especially when you're new. Then I am working actually on something I'm going to be rolling out soon. I probably can say it here. And it's a group coaching program. And I am calling it coaching in this instance because in a group setting, that's what I feel like it is. Because, But I'm starting it with a young professionals group that I spoke with, and then they've really clung to me and mentoring them. And then so some of it's morphing into this coaching program, and I'm really intrigued by the idea. And I've had some potential clients who I've sat with who the money was, they weren't making the money they needed right now to hire me one-on-one.
Nice.
So I'm getting ready to roll out group coaching, and I will put that out there to those people first. But I think it's going to be
and they can
toe in
find
the
out
water for some people who aren't quite sure if this is what they need or not. So I always say I'm kind of like, I was just saying I'm probably a lot like you, where we're kind of like the tough love. You know, we care about our clients, but we're going to do it more in the tough love.
Right.
Where, okay, but why are you doing that? But why are you doing that? Okay, and why are you doing that? Because again,
right.
I grew up where I had to be very resilient and more of a survivor. So I don't have time for all this fluff. I don't trust it. I don't trust all the fluff and, oh, you're so awesome and amazing. I'd much rather have somebody help me be
so they can find
awesome
out about that on your
Facebook
page.
Tell me I'm awesome.
Obviously, that's going to be, you're going to be sharing it there.
So that's what's coming
And thank you so much, Christa, for taking the time today. I know, it's not easy to take an hour out of the morning, but I appreciate it. Thank you for the props. And so thank you. I'm going to stop the recording. So thank you all for being here.
Great. Thanks for the great questions.